and gentlemen, stand up and get loud for the greatest talk show in television history, everybody.
Welcome, everybody, to Fans Talk Pro Wrestling. This is being recorded on Wednesday, February 14th, 2018, and this is episode 411. My name is Nick, and with me, as per usual, is Adam. How's it going, Adam?
Not too bad, Nick. How you doing?
I am feeling pretty damn good right now, and I will explain why in a later segment. But firstly, we've got some wrestling news to talk about. Let's go ahead and start with the non-WWE related stuff. First and foremost, Lucha Underground tapings are officially beginning in a week and a half. Not this coming weekend, but the next. They are going to be filming on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, if I'm remembering those dates correctly. Yes, my date and day correlation is not acting up. So, yeah, it's official. Like, we're going to be seeing that. How does that make you feel, host of Fans Talk Lucha?
Co-host, if I'm being honest. Still love and appreciate Garvin. Extremely fucking excited. I am actually wearing my officially licensed Pentagon Dark t-shirt today. I don't know if that factors at all into Season 4 because of the weird contract wonkiness of Lucha Underground and what all of the talent have been doing in the interim since Season 3, but I don't care, man. I mean, if the title's vacated and they got to do a bunch of other shit, like, whatever. I trust Lucha Underground so implicitly to do a good job with literally anything they're handed. So I'm definitely excited about it. I didn't know that they had already announced recording days. I did know that they just announced, like, I even posted it in the Facebook group if you guys want to check that out. They gave a little sneak peek as to what the new temple is going to look like. If any of you guys remember the cliffhanger from Season 3, sort of a Who Shot JR situation, although we already know who has done the shooting, but that is kind of not the point. Like, there's going to be all new stuff this coming Season 4. So I'm super excited about all that. I cannot wait. Like, I've mentioned both on and off the show that I've felt a little bit of a dearth in wrestling lately. I would say, like, the Royal Rumble did get me a little bit more excited for the Mania build, and same, probably not to the same degree, but the same could be said for Elimination Chamber and Fastlane. And, where the fallout from that's going to end up. So, like, my excitement level has definitely increased from the low that it was at. I still, though, just kind of feel a very, like, constant malaise whenever I feel like I have to watch Raw or SmackDown, which is not necessarily very good to have as the co-host of a weekly wrestling podcast. So please bring on some more. I've tried to get a little bit from New Japan, although I'm not as good at following that as others on this show. NXT the same. 205 Live. I'm trying to talk myself to get back into it. Lucha as well. Like, I mean, I'm so faithful to them. I'm just excited, man. If you couldn't tell by me gushing for like a solid 5 minutes, I'm excited.
Yeah, come on, man. I thought this would excite you. Like, show a little enthusiasm about it.
I mean, I'll try. I gotta, like, work myself up, We didn't really get a ton of pre-show, so, sorry. This is my best, guys.
Yeah. Well, temper that enthusiasm a little bit, because there are no announcements for when these tapings will actually air. We don't know when the new season will actually premiere on TV, but, the ball has to start rolling somewhere. Now, it'll be interesting to see where they go for Season 4, like, especially me not having watched the latter half of Season 3. I'm kind of torn on whether or not I'll catch up on that. But, they don't have Ricochet anymore, with him having been signed to WWE.
Right.
It's questionable whether they'll have Mysterio, because, there's been a lot of talks about him going back to WWE after the Rumble. Right now, he's booked to face Jushin Liger at the Strong Style Evolved show for New Japan. So Ray could go a few different directions and could be MIA from Lucha Underground. We don't know. Will they bring back Pentagon Dark and Phoenix? Who knows how that relationship is holding up?
Sure.
But, they've still got Johnny Mundo. He's carrying the flag pretty strongly for them right now. And yeah, they've still got a number of talent they could easily rely on. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see where that goes in the coming months.
Yeah, I 100% agree. Mysterio versus Liger is a huge, huge match. I'm not sure if they have faced off against each other at all in their illustrious careers before, but if they haven't, that just makes it even bigger. If they have, honestly, who cares? It's two big veteran legends that...
Yeah, it hasn't been in a long, long time, at least.
Yeah, at the very least. That know how to work together in the ring. Both are mass superstars, so they know how to work that into it as well. And they both have just, really good eye for, I think, just building a story and whatnot. So that's huge. I personally, if I could just interject a minute, I think we talked a little bit about that on our post-Rumble show, but I still feel the same. I would prefer it if Mysterio stayed in Lucha Underground. I know he looked very, very good at the Rumble, and I'm not going to sit here and try and deny that he did not, but I just think he would get better treatment and would be more creatively fulfilled in Lucha Underground. Personally, maybe I'm wrong on that, but that's how I feel.
I have verified that Mysterio and Liger have never crossed paths before.
Holy cow. Yeah, that's a big deal.
Yeah, considering how long those two have been in the business, and I think they've been in the same company at the same time before. If they were ever going to cross paths, it would have been in WCW, but this is definitely going to be a marquee match for that show.
Sure.
Shifting gears to the WWE. First and foremost, let's go ahead and get this out of the way. There is a report from Sports Illustrated that Dolph Ziggler has signed a 2-year contract with WWE. The writer for Sports Illustrated, Justin Barrasso, cited a figure that has not been verified by other sources, well into the millions. But it doesn't seem like Dolph Ziggler is going anywhere anytime soon. That does track with what he's doing on TV right now. The fact that he's back at all, in fact. I think it's pretty safe to say that nobody will be surprised when I say that this does not excite me in the slightest. I don't see anything changing because the company threw a lot of money for him to stay. But perhaps you feel differently about it. I know you're not quite as tired of Dolph, perhaps, as I am.
I think for me, I'm just kind of tired of Dolph being where he is. And it's sort of a infinity loop kind of situation. I think that outside of a few spikes here and there, WWE has always looked at him as an even keel mid-carder. And I think Dolph is very frustrated about that as a person, not a character. And I think that really shows in a lot of his work. I think he's just feels like he's not going to have an opportunity. So it's definitely surprising to hear that he's signed up again, because the last time I heard him talking about contracts, I don't think he directly said anything about not re-signing, but that was sort of the implied, I think, tone that he was using, that he had a very long time to write out the contract. And I guess the most fair way to say it was that it was going to be, we'll see what happens when that 3-year contract was up at the time. So it's definitely interesting to see. But I don't know, man. I just feel like shifting from person to character as a character, man, Dolph, I don't know. It just, even this whole run of this new, I don't have a gimmick, but I do, but I don't kind of thing. I definitely feel like it was a big missed opportunity at Royal Rumble to not do something a little bit more emphatic with that, that absence that he had, and then showing up again at the Rumble. I don't think it was extremely surprising for most of us that he showed up, but I don't know. Like, I feel like Final 5, Final 4, maybe. I would have rather seen him in the Final 4 than Cena, if I'm being honest.
Yeah,
So,
perhaps instead of him coming out at number 30 only to be eliminated to no fanfare like a minute later.
Yeah, exactly. Like, do something with it. I'm not saying I was never expecting him to win the Rumble, obviously, but at the same time, if he did, like, that would have been something at least. It would have been, it would have been better than what we got. So I don't know. I'm feeling weird about it. It seems like a weird decision from all accounts, but hey, I'm not that guy, so he's got to make his own life choices, and if this is what makes him happy or pays the bills, then that's totally his choice.
Yeah, I certainly can't fault him for taking money to sit there and be comfortable, because God knows he wouldn't make any money doing comedy.
Fair enough. Well, I mean, if he got the chance to work on it more, maybe. Who knows?
No, he's been working on it for years on Twitter, and he's been doing stand-up. Like, he has no future there.
Yeah, fair enough.
But speaking of future, a little bit of happier news that I think we can all get behind. First and foremost, Big Cass is back at the Performance Center, and he's working out, and he's getting back in shape. No word yet on when he's going to be back in the ring, back on TV. But he has been seen working out there, so that is definitely a good sign. Sure. After the way his leg just gave out on him on TV. ACL injuries are nothing to fuck with, and I'm glad the dude is doing a lot better than he was.
I 100% agree. I feel like at this point, if he was to show back up, and I don't necessarily think it would be a bad thing for him, but I think at this point, there's just not a ton of time to build into a story, adding to the fact that the story that he left is now completely impossible to follow up on, with Enzo not being around anymore.
Which I'm entirely fine with. Like, they just forget that it never happened.
Well, I'm sure someone will always remember it. But sure, I'm fine with him not being involved with Enzo coming back. I guess I see him as a pretty, if he's, able to support weight on the leg and actually work a match and all that stuff. I actually don't have a problem with him being thrown into the armbar and being a really strong potential front runner for it. I think that would actually be not a bad, kind of comeback story. At least for the Mania build, and then what you do after that, hopefully you follow up much stronger. But time has told us that the armbar has very middling levels of success with it, so we'll see there. But I actually don't think that's a bad place for him to start out.
No, I mean, it's, like you said, there's not a whole lot of importance attached to the armbar long term. But for the next couple of months, at least, that's something he can tout. That's something that he can use to kind of get rolling again. Whoever he feuds with, whether he comes back as a face or a heel, he can rub that in people's faces.
Yeah, I agree.
Finally, Buddy Murphy, the long-lost Australian half of Blake and Murphy, he's back on TV and he's back on the main roster. In fact, he is taking part in the 205 Live Cruiserweight Championship Tournament, and he's going to be fighting Arya Daivari next week. This came a little bit out of left field for me. Firstly, because I didn't figure that he was Cruiserweight material. They actually made a fairly big deal out of that this week on 205 Live. They held a whole weigh-in ceremony and everything, and he officially weighed in at 204.4. So he made the weight. He shook Drake Maverick's hand, and it's official. No word yet on when Wesley Blake is coming back from paternity leave, but I'm not mad about this. Not at all. Because Buddy Murphy is an incredibly talented wrestler. I think he was definitely the guy where all the money was at in that tag team of Blake and Murphy. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what he'll do in the tournament. I have no doubt that he will advance to the second round at least. But yeah, how do you feel? Like, have you been missing Blake and Murphy on your TV screen, or is this like big news for you, or is this it's another guy they brought up for the tournament, like Mark Andrews and Roderick Strong?
I guess I'm kind of in the middle of that. Like, I guess to run down the list of questions, I wouldn't say I've been missing the tag team of Blake and Murphy. I kind of feel like they were a product of their time a little bit, or at least just right place, right time. They were a fine heel tag team for what the division needed at the time, I think. But I don't necessarily feel like they blew out the doors or, did anything extremely significant as a tag team that made me want to see them constantly, like, let's say, a Revival or an AOP or TM61 or something like that. They never really reached that kind of upper echelon level for me. So I can't say I've really been missing them. Obviously, there's the standard bearer of it's good to see a guy come back from injury and get a shot at stuff and we'll see there. But I don't necessarily put his chances of winning this tournament very high. But I mean, I could be wrong. Not exactly super high on Ira Davari either. So we'll just have to see, I guess.
Yeah, I feel like it's a lot more likely that someone else is going to win. Drew Gulak, perhaps, Cedric Alexander. Let's see, Mustafa Ali, should he come out triumphant in the other match next week against Gallagher? Yeah, I don't know. It's still anybody's game, really. But yeah, I figure Buddy Murphy is going to be second round fodder. I believe he would be slated against the winner of Mustafa Ali or Jack Gallagher if they keep the brackets the same. But yeah, next week should be fun nonetheless. Ari Daivari is a very credible competitor. He's a very solid wrestler. I think it's going to be an interesting mix of styles. But that is it for the news portion of our show. Just a quick update on the Mixed Match Challenge. This week was indeed the Mixed Machka Challenge. I was 1 week early last week. And it will continue to be the Mixed Machka Challenge because Lana and Rusev defeated Bayley and Elias. Thereby earning Lana's first ever victory as a competitor, I believe.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Next week is going to be, let me see if I remember this correctly, Nia Jax and Apollo Crews versus Charlotte and Bobby Roode, which that shouldn't be a hard question to answer for anybody as to who walks away the victor in that contest. As much as I hate that Apollo Crews just never will ever win a big match, I hate that, but that's the reality of what we've got.
I don't know about never ever, but definitely I think he's viewed in a certain light for the foreseeable future. When if that's even possible, the mid card kind of starts clearing out. I think Apollo may potentially have a chance. I thought he showed. I haven't seen the mixed match challenge match obviously because it hasn't happened yet. But his match this last week on Raw, I do think he I know it's a fatal 5-way, so you got 4 other guys kind of carry the weight with you, but he still, I think, put on a pretty good match for his part in it. So I mean, his wrestling ability, like we've said all the time, has always been great. I just think, honestly, Titus as a manager is just kind of hurting more than helping at this point. I think he might be better off.
I think if he was still a manager, I think he'd be better off. But Titus hasn't been just a manager ever since they brought Dana Brooke on.
That might be a fair point.
Since before, really.
Yeah.
I'm just positive that Apollo is the next Cesaro, a guy they could easily push to the upper card and give a significant title reign, but for whatever reason, they just will not do it.
Yeah,
not if you held a gun to their head. I don't know. Speaking of Raw, let's go ahead and get into that.
Sure.
First and foremost, they kicked off with Miz versus Cena. And there was a stipulation attached. Whoever lost would enter the chamber first. And this has been weird because now we've established who is going to enter the chamber first and who is going to enter the chamber last, which I don't think they've ever done before for a chamber match. And Miz lost to Cena, so it's going to be him. I fully expect Braun Strowman to be next. just because that seems like a reasonable thing to do.
Sure.
But yeah, I feel weird about the Intercontinental Champion being in this match at all to determine the number one contender for Brock Lesnar. But was this the right choice? Like, should it have been John Cena going start to finish? Or
start however long, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's a more entertaining choice, to be honest. I think we've seen Cena, run the gauntlet so many times at this point in his career that I don't think it would be super entertaining for the crowd to watch it. Whereas I do think potentially if Miz is at least given the opportunity to compete once all the other members have been entered into the cage, and then at that point is eliminated, I could definitely see him using his, wily, cowardly heel tactics to his advantage and, tell an entertaining story, not too dissimilar from like Jericho during the Elimination Chamber that the Undertaker won. And things of that nature, where he's kind of, trying to hide in one of the pods or, getting two other people to fight and just kind of sitting back and watching the carnage and stuff like that. I think Miz has that capability to be far more entertaining as the match goes on. Whereas Cena, I mean, he would just probably do the standard flopping around that he always does. Maybe get an elimination or two before everybody's out, and then hopefully at that point get eliminated himself. But either way, no matter how you break it down, I just feel like it would be far less entertaining. Let Cena be in the pod for a while. He could be, one of the big name stars that everybody kind of looks as, probably not the winner, but at least a decent favorite, definitely odds on choice. And, hopefully he puts someone over.
Yeah, he better. I'm tired of this pleading with the crowd nonsense. Like, I have to make it to Mania somehow, you guys. Like, you are tied with Ric Flair for the most world title reigns in this company. Like, you're fucking made. Like, come on, man. But on the same note with the Chamber, there was a second chance match this week on Raw between, Apollo Crews, Bray Wyatt, Matt Hardy, and Finn Balor, and getting his first chance at this shot was Seth Rollins, who was added to the match at the last minute, due to Jason Jordan not being able to compete and get Rollins another shot at the tag team titles. So the match went on, and eventually, if I'm recalling correctly, it ended in a dusty finish, no clear winners, and Kurt Angle just added Balor and Rollins to the match together. So this is going to be a 7-man chamber match. Whether or not Balor and Rollins will share a pod, or if they will add a 7th pod to the chamber, who knows? But it's a 7-man match now, and I don't think that changes anything drastically as far as the composition of the match or how it'll flow or anything like that. I don't have any strong feelings one way or the other about Rollins being added to this match. I figure, yeah, sure, why not? I also figure we still only have 3 matches booked for this card. So why couldn't Seth have fought Sheamus or Cesaro in just a throwaway singles match? I don't know. Do you think that this changes anything as far as how this match will end? Like, could Seth Rollins throw a monkey wrench into things?
I definitely don't see him going on to Mania to fight Brock Lesnar, if that's what you're asking. I do think it could, build to some of the storyline down the road. If Balor doesn't win as well, which is, I mean, just looking at the booking outside of the lead up to an Elimination Chamber, I don't feel very strongly about, and I hate to say that because I love Finn Balor, and I do think a Balor versus Brock main event at WrestleMania is an extreme play, but looking at how he's been booked outside of, like I said, the build to this chamber match, and even then, like, the book to this chamber match has been very, basic. Like, they haven't really built up Finn as this, extreme world beater or anything. He's just another guy competing for a spot. which he eventually earned. It's hard for me to believe that that's going to be the match either, but if they somehow try and cost each other or end up costing each other a chance at Mania, I can see that being a good mid to upper card level match on the Mania card, if that's what they decide to do, since it seems like Jason Jordan obviously isn't going to be able to compete. It also makes me wonder what the plans were originally, if they were going to lead all the way to a tag match, all the way to Mania between the Bar and Seth and Jordan, because I assumed that Jordan was going to go off and do his own singles thing at Mania anyway. So it just makes me wonder what the original plans might have been for that, but I suppose that's something that will have to be answered on another day.
If you buy into dirt sheet mongering, the plan was supposedly for Seth to fight Jason Jordan at Mania.
Okay.
I don't believe that for a second, and I think that would have been a bad program.
Yeah.
But that's what's out there right now.
I mean, I think like the plans for Seth specifically have been kind of jostled around since December-ish anyway. I think they were probably going to do, as long as Ambrose was healthy at the time, they were probably going to do some sort of 3-man Shield thing at Mania, but then that got botched, and then now Jordan got injured too, so it's like, what do you do with Seth kind of thing. So I get it. I definitely am also curious to see how they pull off this 7-man thing, if they do add a 5th pod to the chamber, or if they, I think it was suggested. Well, it'd be 5 because two guys don't.
What are you talking about?
Two guys don't go into the pods at all. They just start the match. So there's
I don't remember how this is.
There's only 4 pods, and then 2 guys compete. There's 6 guys. 2 guys start without ever being in a pod, and then 4 people are already in pods, and they get.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So it was also suggested in the live chat that they could just start with a 3-man match, which I probably think is the easier way to go. I have a feeling they don't have a chamber designed specifically for this instance, but I would be extremely amused if Seth and Balor had to share their own pod and then like fight each other to decide who exits it. That'd be kind of entertaining. I don't know if that's what they're going to do, but I'm a very small part of me is hoping that that's what they do. Yeah, so I don't know. The chamber, I think, is very up in the air as far as who's going to win. I still have a very strong foreboding thought that I will continue to say up until the chamber match itself, that Roman is going to be the one walking out, because we all know how stubborn. I know. I want to. I do. We all know how stubborn Vince is. We heard rumors that was the plan last year. In Vince's mind, at least, I don't see any reason why that would change. So, yeah, I think that's the plan. Although I guess that does kind of fuck up my original Shield 3-man prediction, but, whatever. It's all toss up. Who knows what's going to happen? We got to see this last month through before we start making Mania predictions, I guess.
Yeah. One final bit of Raw happenings. There was an Elias segment, and the crowd ate it up as per usual. Even after Elias talked mad shit on their city and their state. And over the past few Raws, in the build to the Elimination Chamber, Elias has attacked Braun a couple of times, broken a couple of guitars over his back, and he hasn't really gotten his comeuppance for it. Well, this week he did. First and foremost, Braun Strowman sat on the stage with a very similar setup to Elias, and he brought out an upright bass and began to strum it, immediately busted the thing, and started singing. And he didn't sound half bad, as a side note. But then he started walking down to the ring, carrying the upright bass over his shoulder. And there was a standoff. They both decided to put their weapons down. Elias tried to cheap shot Braun. Braun laid him the fuck out. And as Elias was crawling up the ramp to get away, Braun took that upright bass and he fucking honky-tonked him. I loved this spot so much. I was dying laughing. I was nearly screaming. Like this segment was perfect. this is the Braun Strowman I want to see. If you're going to turn him face, he can't be 100% rage monster all the time. Like, you have to show him having a little bit of depth. Not necessarily make him a comedy wrestler, but like showing different sides of him. Like these little glimpses of the man behind the monster is great. And just having him do feats of strength that aren't obviously bullshit. Like all of that truck flipping can go to hell. Like just him heaving that upright base over his head and then breaking it over Elias's back. Like that's good. That's perfect. I don't need to see him try and top Mark Henry's feat of pulling a plane by himself. Like, this is fine. This is good. And I hope that this is a sign of things to come. Like, I hope they continue in this vein. I love this shit.
We were talking about this much earlier in the day today, and I will admit I was not quite as enthralled with this segment when we originally talked. But after hearing you and hearing Garvin voice your own opinions about how you thought it went down, I was like, you know what? I'm going to give this segment one more chance. I'm going to watch it again. And I will have to admit that in spite of myself, I did find myself enjoying this a little bit more. I did voice concerns that I thought that this was kind of a little out of nowhere for his character based on what they were doing before. There are some precedents set that makes sense for this to happen. In the way that it did, I still feel like I 100% agree. Like Braun has an amazing singing voice, something I never fucking expected. But it did seem odd that all of a sudden he was fine with just playing his bass and singing instead of just marching down to the ring from the jump and swinging that bass around. But, you know, I kind of have to sort of dial back a little bit and agree with Nick that I think it does add depth to his character to do it. If it's out of left field, sure, but I think that's also part of the fun. I've heard it said by a couple others in our community that they feel like this is starting to push him towards Stone Cold levels of overness or character development. In a way, like I said, on my second viewing, I definitely saw more of that than I did on the first, having it in mind. I do still want Braun to be kind of his own dude. If they want to sprinkle some Stone Coldy stuff, I'm less opposed to that than I was originally. But I still want Braun to be his own. I want Braun to be Braun. I think trying to compare.
Let me interject there. Like, nobody, at least as far as our interactions have gone, nobody is saying that they're making him Stone Cold.
No, right.
That's not the route that's being taken at all. Like,
right.
We're talking purely in terms of reception with the crowd. Like, how is a crowd reacting to him? Sure. And yeah, Braun gets the best pops out of anybody right now. Has been for a little while. And
sure.
Like, I to elaborate on what I was saying earlier, like, he's not only showing depth with being something other than just an angry face. The way he sat out there, like the spotlight turns on, he's sitting on the stool and he's just staring a hole through Elias. And he gets up and walks out of the spotlight and you can't see shit. And then he walks back in the spotlight and he's got that bass. Like, I like the idea that Braun Strowman can not only beat the shit out of people and is really strong, but he's got a sense of dramatic timing too.
Sure. I agree with all that. I'm only saying going forward. I don't think that, you know, Braun is a one-to-one facsimile of Stone Cold. And I agree that I think he is on his way. I don't think he's, you know, he hasn't met the highest echelon of Stone Cold's overness quite yet, but he is definitely the most over dude on the Raw roster right now, I think. So I agree with you on that front. I just know, you know, looking ahead to the future, I don't want to see them like basically Shark Boy Braun into being a Stone Cold facsimile, as is WWE creators want to do when they get a little bit of an inkling of like, oh, well, people are kind of reacting to him, you know, kind of being like Stone Cold. It's like, let Braun be Braun. Let Braun bring some inspiration from Stone Cold to his character, but let him be him. Those have always been, if you always try and compare, like a couple years ago, they compared Cena and Orton to the next, like, Austin Rock. And that's a very poor facsimile because Cena and Orton are Cena and Orton. And for better or worse, their long-standing feud with each other was probably the closest that we would ever come to within the last, like, probably 10 years maybe, to the Austin Rock feud. But it's never going to get to that level because they are not Austin and The Rock. They're John Cena and Randy Orton. And I feel like looking at them as what they are rather than what they are supposed to be or could be does a detriment to them. Even though we all look at Randy Orton and John Cena as not very fulfilling as superstars anymore. I don't want that to happen to Braun. I think Braun is at a very, very good place right now, and there's not a good chance, but there's, there is a chance that creative kind of starts pushing him in a different, weirder direction that doesn't play, and I don't want to see that.
And that's the thing, because the default mode for trying to push the face with the most reaction is to make him more like John Cena. They did it with Daniel Bryan. They did it with Roman Reigns. They did it with Seth Rollins. They did it with Dean Ambrose. I feel like you can't do that with Braun Strowman just because he is turning face, but he's also a monster. That's very different from anything you could do with John Cena. My fear would be is if they try to do with Braun what they did with Big Show and Khali and make them jokes.
Yeah.
Like, Braun has never won the big one. And that's through no fault of his own. He hasn't really made a serious push for a title. There was the one off with Brock, and that was kind of it. But, like, that is where I see that turn going.
Yeah,
if it happens at all.
Rumble. Yeah, we consider that also a push for the title.
No, because then, like, the legends would also be making serious pushes for titles. The NXT call-ups would be making serious pushes for titles, and that's just not happening. So, like,
no, I mean,
I don't count the Rumble as an attempt at a title.
No, I mean the triple threat match that he had at this past Rumble.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, but yes, it's still roughly the same thing.
Yeah, I tend not to count that either, just because there was so much else going on in that angle, and they didn't really that the title was an afterthought, just like it always has been whenever Brock's involved.
Yeah, and they didn't really give it like a
I don't
push.
Feel like. Yeah, I just don't feel like Braun has made that concerted effort, that statement, I'm coming for the title, and it's going to be mine, I'm going to be the champion. Like, it's always been, I'm not finished with you, you're going to get these hands, Braun, and he just beats the shit out of people, and if there's a title adjacent, then that's just icing.
Sure. And I will also add that I love the sort of creative flourish that they did with the song, where he basically did work in, all of his catchphrases and whatnot, and I think a natural way, which I think did much more to even deepen just those catchphrases and whatnot. So
I still don't like "catch these hands" as a catchphrase. Like that feels
it's there, man. Like, it's on a shirt. So I don't think it's going away.
Yeah, but then so is Spear, Jackhammer, Spit, Repeat, or whatever the fuck it was for Goldberg, and like they abandoned that right quick.
Sure, but it plays. People popped like shit for
the Spit part. Like they wanted to get away from that.
Well, sure, I meant for Strowman. They fucking marked for shit for that.
Yeah, people will mark for anything if you say it enough times. I just wish you would stick to "I'm not finished with you." That is such a good tagline.
Yeah, that's a good one. I dig it.
But yeah, regardless of the fears for the future or places we want him to go, Braun is on fucking top right now, and I want to see him use so many more weapons on so many more people.
Well, I suppose, we could wait for, some tentative chamber predictions until later in the show or next week. But I guess I kind of want to play devil's advocate right now. How would you feel about Braun winning the chamber?
I am not for it. I don't want another Braun Brock match for a title, because the last one wasn't great. Braun, for as good as he is right now, he doesn't hold a candle to other guys in the ring. Guys like Rollins, guys like AJ, guys like even Ambrose. When you let him work the way he wants to work, and you don't make him do all this weird shit that shows he's crazy.
Right.
Like, he needs somebody better than him to help get him to those really good matches. He needs a guy like Joe. And Brock's not that guy. Not anymore. So when you get them in there, it's going to be awkward. It's going to be very similar to Lesnar's last UFC fight against Mark Hunt. Like, it's going to be two big dudes just swiping at each other. Yeah, if you just want a bar fight, sure, that's fun. But it's not a main event. So in another scenario where Brock Lesnar's not the champion, like say Finn Balor takes a belt from Brock, I'm fine with Braun getting that title shot, getting that match, main eventing a pay-per-view for the title, because Balor is going to help him to a good match, if not a great match. It's just Brock's not the right kind of opponent for Braun right now, I feel.
That's a fair point. I feel like there's also a level of sort of overness and crowd reaction, I guess. Like, I could see it playing very similarly to Lesnar versus Goldberg last year, where people kind of do just want to see, they're not looking for technical acumen, they just want to see two big motherfuckers standing across the ring from each other and then slugging it out. That said, I still would prefer Balor to win, but I could also see, based on his reaction, I could see them starting to turn towards Braun as an option. I will quote Bray Wyatt from a couple years ago. Anyone but you, Roman. Anyone but you.
Yeah, I don't really want to see Roman with the belt either.
I don't even though I
think Roman versus Brock would be a really good match, because those two work well together for whatever reason.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I just don't want to see either of them with the belt right now.
Yeah, I don't want to see Reigns competing for the belt right now. I think he needs a while. I think that's why people have always kind of been sour on him, because it's always been a fast track to making him champion. I think he needs not just a while of being distracted by other people while he tries to get the belt, a while of legit, like, climbing ladders. That I don't think it's too late for that. And I think, honestly, it's the last 3 to 4 months have served Reigns better, because that's, to me, what it feels like he's been doing is, not necessarily trying to put someone out of his way so he can get back to Universal contention, but legit focused on what is in front of him at the time.
Now that I think about it, when was Roman's last match for a title? Or for the Universal title, rather?
I don't think he's ever competed for the Universal title. Maybe the 5-way, or the Battle of the Beasts, as he was calling it, for SummerSlam. I think that was the closest. Or that wasn't SummerSlam. That was Battleground, right? But when it was him and Strowman and Joe and Brock, that Fatal 4-way was, I think, the last time he competed for the Universal title.
According to Cage Match, the last time he competed was in a Fatal 4-way. Brock, Braun, Roman, and Joe at SummerSlam.
Oh, it was SummerSlam. Okay.
Yeah, that was back in August.
Yeah.
And the time before that, he had a couple of number one contendership matches prior to that.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was the time before that was back in 2016, a year before. There's a Fatal 4-way elimination match where Kevin Owens defeated Roman Reigns, Seth Rollins, and Big Cass on Raw. And the title was vacant at the time. I don't remember why.
I think that was Balor being injured.
Was it?
Yeah, and they hadn't finished the tournament or whatever they did to get Seth to the title.
That might have been it. Wait, no, because it goes on to say Finn Balor defeated Roman Reigns in a number one contendership match like a month earlier.
Huh.
I don't know.
I don't know either. It has been a while, I'll admit, but I don't know. I just never have gotten the feeling until very recently that he is ultimately, like, you know, when he chased Rusev for the U.S. title, it's because he's like, I got nothing better to do, you know, and other people are busy for the Universal. That's how it felt to me from a tonal standpoint. Right now, it feels like he wants to, you know, take out Miz because he has a beef with Miz, and not because Miz cost him a shot at the Universal title. You know, like, again, the feud with him and Bray Wyatt that I mentioned, that was, I think, you know, at least the catalyst. I know it got a little deeper after that with Bray doing his typical shenanigans to kind of get under Roman's skin, but I still feel like in Roman's head he was like, yeah, okay, you in kayfabe, you know, did weird stuff and threatened my daughter, but you also cost me a shot at the title, and that's why I'm mad at you. You know, I'm gonna get revenge for my daughter by way of also challenging for the title once I'm done with you. So I feel like now that they've gotten him more away from that, and it seems like he's more focused on whatever hurdle is in front of him rather than so far down the road once he gets past them, I think that's doing better for Roman Reigns. I don't think people are I'm still turned off by him, but it's definitely not to the level that it was a year or 2 years ago, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I think Roman's ready for another run at the Universal title. Because, yeah, I'm looking at Cage Match right now, and he's fought for that title 3 times in the last year and a half. So he's had a lot to keep him busy. Like, there was Bray Wyatt. He had that long-running program with Braun. And he had that very brief stint as the Intercontinental Champion, which, personally, I wish would have gone on longer. I wish that Miz hadn't picked it right back up when he came back from shooting the Marine.
I also agree with that.
As, again, having said all that, I'm still not ready to see Roman hold the belt right now. Like, not before Mania. But, yeah, I think within the next 6 months, I'd be okay with him challenging for it.
Yeah, I mean, by that time, and especially if they're booking him like they have been recently, I think, yeah, by a SummerSlam or, you know, Battleground or whatever is after SummerSlam, I'd be into that too. I just don't. I don't want to see him compete in the main event of WrestleMania again. You know, I think he has the chance to pull away from that Cena syndrome of we're just tired of seeing you around any sort of main event scene, no matter what you do. You know, I think there's still a chance to save him from that, but I think you got to put in the work to do it.
Yeah, he's pulling away from that perception, but it is still there because he still gets booed when he walks out on Raw, but like pulling the Shield back together for that brief stint before Ambrose got hurt, and then like when he was teaming with Seth or just appearing with Seth, that reaction is getting more mellow. It's getting diluted more with more cheers. So he is pulling back from that. Like, people are starting to choke back that reflexive, pushing down throats again, I'm not having any of it.
Right.
It's getting better.
I think so too.
But I think that will do it for our Raw discussion. Pick up on a couple of SmackDown happenings, mostly as they relate to Fastlane. Specifically, Ziggler and Corbin were scheduled to fight to determine who would join the main event WWE title match with AJ, Kevin, and Sammy. But before that could happen, Ziggler made it out to the ring, and Kevin and Sammy ambushed Corbin backstage. They beat him down. They went out and they beat Ziggler down. Corbin ran out to get revenge, got beat down again. And then, I forget if it was Shane or Daniel that made the call, but Kevin had to fight Corbin, and if Corbin won, Corbin was in the match. And then Sammy had to fight Ziggler, and if Ziggler won, Ziggler was in the match. Of course, Corbin and Ziggler both wound up winning their matches, so the main event of Fastlane is now a Fatal 5-Way, because Fastlane already wasn't snooze-worthy enough. I don't like this. again, definitely not a Ziggler fan. Not much of a Corbin fan either. But you already have a main event match that is tired from a creative standpoint. It was AJ versus Kevin versus Sammy. That program's been going on for a little while now. And then nobody's really behind Corbin. And then you bring back Ziggler to no fanfare and you promptly do nothing with him except the same old, I am the best wrestler there is. Nobody out there can touch me. All he's done is drop the you don't deserve me shtick. And you immediately throw him into the main event with him talking about, I'm going to main event WrestleMania, the one thing I haven't done yet. I don't get who that helps. It doesn't help Fastlane at all in anybody's perception. All it feels like is just needless filler. And that's how Fastlane feels to me right now. Like, Fastlane has always been a whatever, it's a B show at best. But we have in the background of all our minds the specter of AJ versus Shinsuke at WrestleMania. Nobody wants to see that endangered. I can't think of anybody that would rather see Kevin Owens versus Shinsuke, or Sami Zayn versus Shinsuke, or Baron versus Shinsuke again, or Ziggler versus Shinsuke again. Everybody wants to see AJ versus Shinsuke. Personally, I'd be fine if they didn't have Fastlane at all. Like, if all they did with the title was hype up that match. And sure, give AJ and Shinsuke programs to keep them busy on SmackDown, rather than keep Shinsuke off TV like they have been doing. But we don't need to see the title be defended or the title be bickered over every week. We don't need to see it be defended again at Fastlane to know that this is some really important shit going down at WrestleMania. We just want this legitimate dream match. They throw that term around a lot with little to no credibility, but this is actually a dream match. Something that we know can pull huge numbers. Even if you've never seen any of their work outside of the WWE, you didn't see their match at Wrestle Kingdom that absolutely blew the doors off the place. Off the Tokyo Dome, no less. But that one moment in the Money in the Bank match they were both in, where the people in that building absolutely lost their minds, and they just looked at each other. They hadn't even touched each other yet. They just looked at each other. And people were going bonkers. That is where the money is. We don't need any of this extra bullshit. And I don't know why they haven't figured that out.
I think it's kind of a sort of a businessy decision. You know, I saw in the live chat earlier, I think it was Beanbags that asked, what do we think of this whole multi-man leading into WrestleMania kind of thing? I definitely think with the Elimination Chamber, first of all, you have the gimmick of the chamber itself. And secondly, because the winner of the Rumble was not a Raw winner, you have to find some number one contender by WrestleMania. I think it's a good, solid fit. On the flip side, with SmackDown, it's not as strong because they've already not just announced that Shinsuke wants to challenge for the WWE title, but that he wants to challenge AJ Styles. And as you said, that's the money match that everybody wants to see. And anything else, while interesting, you know, in its dynamic with some of the competitors, like Owens, you said, or seeing Zayn and Shinsuke too on the main roster, it's not AJ versus Shinsuke. And that's the downside. So it does feel like filler because to me, I don't feel like there's any risk to AJ winning this. I feel like based on the reaction they got at Money in the Bank and the Rumble for the possibility of that is nowhere near the course that they're going to steer away from. You know, I think this has been the build since that Money in the Bank moment. And it does feel hollow to even have this match. I mean, on the one hand, it's kind of how I felt about the Seth Rollins and Balor situation. When I first saw that happen, in my mind, before any announcements were made, I assumed that they were just going to have Seth and Balor compete next week between the two of them to decide who among them might actually go on to fill that sixth spot. And while there was a part of me that's kind of like, oh, okay, we're dragging this on for another week, another part of me was also looking at it like this, you know, I respect that. that's honestly, even at its barest minimum, that's good build towards Elimination Chamber. It makes you want to watch every Monday Night Raw to see how this chamber is going to be filled out. Obviously, it went a different way. They I'm assuming wanted to save the Go Home Raw purely for having the chamber completely filled out and pushing that. But I think it would have that would have been one of the few last minute booking decisions that has been done on a Go Home Raw that I think would have actually fit the narrative very well on the road to Elimination Chamber. So I'm kind of a little bummed that they're not going to do it that way, but I'm also very intrigued to see how they do a 7-man Elimination Chamber. So that is fine. This 5-man thing, I mean, I felt it was weird as a 3-man thing. You know, I didn't think that Owens or Zayn was going to go into WrestleMania as champion, so it does feel fillerish. On the one hand, there is the, I think, tune-in factor to see if they really have the balls to fuck up the build to Shinsuke versus AJ at this point. But on the other, I don't think they do. I think AJ goes on. And maybe there's going to be some cool things that we actually see in the match. I do think that Ziggler and Corbin especially are really good multi-man match competitors and are good at doing spots, and they'll probably be cool to see. But yeah, at the end of the day, it does kind of feel a little pointless that they are there. To an extent, it feels a little pointless that Owens and Zayn are there. I mean, you said it yourself that this program has been going on for a little while. Arguably, the program with Owens and Zayn being a team has been going on a long time, but their beef with AJ directly has only been going on for about 3 or 4 months, which can be long in wrestling terms, don't get me wrong. But it feels, I think, especially longer because it feels pointless. It doesn't feel like Owens or Zayn is going to come out of this champion. It never has. It feels like whatever happens with Owens and Zayn is tied with whatever's going to happen with Daniel and Shane. And who knows what even that's going to happen. I mean, you know, as far as we know, Brian is still not cleared to wrestle by the WWE at least. So I don't think we're going to get a payoff there. And I don't see Shane pulling either Zayn or Owens away as their representative for whatever match they might have, which would be weird. I don't see Shane versus Owens and Zayn handicap match happening at Mania. This whole storyline has been strange because I don't know what the payoff's going to be in a bad way. It's not like I'm trying to guess. It's like I can't see what good outcome you can have from any of this. You know, at least with AJ versus Shane last year, I knew AJ was a decent enough competitor in his own right to carry that match. And Shane can sack up when the need arises. And I think all of us felt that way by the end of that match. This, though, I don't know. It feels confusing in a very bad way. To lump AJ into it, building into AJ versus Shinsuke, feels like it hurts AJ versus Shinsuke more than it helps Owen, Zayn, Corbin, and Ziggler.
I don't know that I'd be more interested in all this, but I would certainly be less annoyed if Kevin and Sammy's pursuit of the title and AJ wasn't just an afterthought, being subsumed by this ongoing Shane McMahon is out to get them. Daniel Bryan, is he on Shane's side? Is he secretly pulling the strings with Kevin and Sammy? Like, the focus is on Shane and Daniel.
Yeah.
AJ doesn't have a stake in any of this. He's just annoyed at everything. I feel like he's at least as annoyed about all this as I am. Which, hey, he's a face champion. I should be able to relate to him, and I haven't related to him harder in months. So, good job on that accidental outcome, WWE. But it's a WWE championship, and it's being held by AJ freaking Styles. That should be the focus of any title programming right now. And the title could just not be there. AJ could just be Shane's soldier in all this, and it would mean just as much as far as the overarching program.
Yeah.
I hope they find something else to salvage Fastlane. Like, I hope they actually do something with the US title. I'm not holding out a lot of hope because Bobby Roode brought back the US Open Challenge and they did fuck all with that. Literally just 4 men standing around until Randy Orton RKO'd somebody. But maybe there's a women's championship match that is not just Riot Squad versus everybody else, while the welcoming committee just hangs in the shadows. Or maybe there's I don't know. Like the Usos, maybe they seem to be throwing the Bludgeon Brothers at them. That was a weird, dumb segment that the Bludgeon Brothers just smashed the TV and just stood there with their hammers. But yeah, I don't know. They're not doing a hell of a lot to make me excited about Fastlane. And when Raw and SmackDown alternates pay-per-views like this, one show always suffers while the other one is building up their card. That's the well-established pattern. Maybe they start getting serious about providing worthwhile content to watch for when it's time for Fastlane, when Elimination Chamber has happened and it's in the rear view. But they're just doing such a piss poor job of doing anything with SmackDown right now.
Yeah, I agree. And I want to be intrigued, because SmackDown usually plays a little bit more towards the gray with their storylines. And I think this storyline just suffers for that, with so much being so unclearly defined. It's hard to really be interested to see where they might go. I think there is a certain je ne sais quoi, I guess, for lack of a better phrase, to having at least some sort of suspicion as to where it would go. I mean, hell, AJ versus Shinsuke for the last 6 months to 8 months even since Money in the Bank, we have been hoping with bated breath that they would do that at Mania, that's what they were building towards, that's what that moment was for. And now they've even stronger teased that to the point of, I think it's not even a tease. That's how you build interest to your program. That's, people want to speculate about those things. When you kind of take any sort of speculation for this storyline, kind of falls flat because none of it feels super satisfying at the end. It just feels like something to do for the last 4 to 5 months. And that's a shame, I think, considering how strong SmackDown has been since the brand split overall. Don't get me wrong. This isn't the first time they've had a little slump in their storytelling, but overall, I still look at them as the stronger storytelling brand. Yeah. And it's a shame that this is the best we got leading into Mania.
Yeah, I mean, with the tag division, they locked it down between the Usos and the New Day for so long that with the WWE's track record, that should have gotten real old real fast. Yeah. And it didn't. It only just kept getting better and better until finally the New Day essentially said uncle. And with the women's division, they were putting on some good programs. They were doing some decent stuff. Like they brought Charlotte over and they had essentially the whole division turn on them or turn on Charlotte. And there was some worthwhile programming to come out of that. The US title. It kept things interesting. And gender. As much as we'll look back on that in a few years and think, well, that didn't really go anywhere. As it was happening, you were never really sure what they were going to do with it. How much longer Jinder was going to hold that title. Because they kept throwing Randy Orton at him. And then they kept throwing Shinsuke at him. And you kept thinking going into each pay-per-view, this has to be it. Like, this was a weird experiment, and it's nice that he got that shot, but this has to be over now, right? And it wasn't. Not until AJ stepped up and took the title from him. Like, things like that kept happening with SmackDown. That you're exactly right. Since the brand split, it has been the stronger show, by and large. It's just every time we start getting closer to WrestleMania, Vince remembers to start paying attention to things again. And you think, well, Raw is the A show, and I haven't given much of a fuck about SmackDown ever, so yeah, push Raw, goddammit. So, yeah, I don't know.
And I mean, it's being said in the live chat too, we got 2 women's singles matches 2 weeks in a row. Raw has also been increasing their number of women's matches. How they find the time in 3 hours. That's exactly what I was going to say. Like, what do they mean in the long run? Is it just a victory over another person? Because I personally need more than that. Like, I know that that's kind of the fallback for any wrestling promotion when they don't have anything for the 2 competitors to do. But when you do that so often that it doesn't seem to be adding towards anything, I mean, are we going to see Sarah Logan versus Charlotte at Mania? I don't think so. You know, are we going to see the Riot Squad versus a 6-woman team that Charlotte makes, or a 3-woman team that Charlotte makes? I mean, I think that's kind of hollow too. I'd rather see the championship defended.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, if the payoff is Riot Squad versus Charlotte, Becky, and Naomi, we're getting that next week. So
yeah,
it's not like there's anything to save there.
right.
And it's not even like if you were just having 2 women going head to head for another W in the win-loss column, fine, but either have that be in the service of a storyline or actually have a storyline going elsewhere in the division. And that's not happening right now. The closest thing to a storyline is there is a faction that is trying to establish dominance in the division, and they're having the same damn story on 2 different shows. And they can't even have it as well on Raw because Sasha injured Paige. So it's just the 2 newest members of that roster kind of being left hung out to dry. So, yeah, they're not really doing anything great with the women right now. Some of it's not their fault.
It's better than it used to be. I'll definitely say that, but
yeah, I mean, it's
got to mean something. It's got to mean something, man.
Yeah, it's good that we're seeing the women get 10-minute matches on TV, whereas they used to get 2 if they were lucky. But that's been happening for years now. We have to do better than that at some point. We have to start having stories that mean something, that aren't just, well, it's my turn to get a title shot now. We have to have something meaningful.
Yeah.
Like, pull the trigger on Sasha's heel turn. Like, she's been teasing that for years since she was brought up to Raw. Have her finally plant that knife in Bayley's back that she's been teasing for so fucking long. Have Charlotte turn on Becky. Have, Natty step up again and do something with the, none of you appreciate me. I don't give a shit about any of you anymore. It's my time. Like, have her do something with that. Or, God forbid, have Carmella cash in with the Money in the Bank briefcase. Like, where the hell has she been? Do something worthwhile with them. Write a story for them. I don't know. Here's a wild idea. Hire women for your writing crew. Maybe then we'd have something for the women's divisions. I don't know. Try something. Maybe it'll work.
Hey, look at. I hate to always harp on that dead horse, but look at the NXT, man. I mean, the story between Ember and Baszler. I mean, it wasn't anything like earth-shatteringly complicated, but it worked. Not only was it like these 2 women are fighting tooth and nail for the championship, it's also Baszler is a daughter of a bitch and will do anything that it takes to put that belt around her waist. Fuck everyone else's opinion about it. That's something to latch onto. It may not have always been booked the best way leading up to their match, but at least it's more than just seeing the 2 of them compete over and over again week to week, or some combination of the 2 of them competing. There is a story there. It's not just that Ember Moon wants to be champion and wants to successfully defend her title. She wants to stand up for the little guy, and she wants to, there's character development there. It's not just that Shayna wants to be champion. She wants to be champion her way. She wants to get there, and she doesn't care how many bodies she leaves in it. That is engrossing. There's a story there. It means something.
And you've always got the iconic duo in the background as well. Like, they're always doing something. For a long time now, there's been this on-again, off-again enmity between them and Nikki Cross. And she's been saving people from them at various intervals. Like, they're not going hard with that, but they are going somewhere with that. And, there was a brief program between Nikki Cross and Tainara Conti when she helped the Undisputed screw over Sanity. They've had little snippets here and there with Bianca Belair, with Kairi Sane, like advancement in their own growth. And why that's only happening there, I don't understand. Because it's not like there's a drastic shift in the thinking down there when it comes to women's wrestling. Like Triple H, for as many people as who hail him as a visionary now that he has NXT, who did he fucking learn from? When did he come up in the business? It wasn't during a boom in women's wrestling. He learned from Vince McMahon. So there's not that big a shift in management when it comes to women's wrestling. So why can't they do it with Raw and SmackDown at least as well as they do in NXT? Like, it's nothing earth-shattering down there either. It's still pretty basic stuff, but it's stuff. It's happening.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, to our points, it's not something that I've just noticed. I've noticed that, SmackDown Live's women's booking hasn't been great. I mean, it's been better than Raw's, I'll say that much. Now, I guess it sort of feels like the tables are turning, but it doesn't at the same time. It's always been a problem. Man, woman, tag team, singles, whatever. It's always been a main roster versus NXT issue for me. The stories on the main roster are just not as engaging. Sure, they are stories. I will admit that the Riot Squad versus Charlotte and her homies is a story, but it's so stripped away because they're not doing anything with it. It's just the Riot Squad competing with that face team. It's not like they're competing for. It doesn't feel like they're competing for dominance. They're saying that they are. They're not showing us that they are. The one thing that I would have said that Absolution had is they were taking a very Shield-esque approach to what they were doing. It didn't matter whether their matches were happening. It didn't matter whether they were friends or enemies before. They were just taking out the women's division. And that is interesting. That has some development to it. This is just, hey, let's see how many times we can have Charlotte and Sarah Logan fight each other, or Liv Morgan, or any of the other members of the Riot Squad. How many times can we have them fight each other at once? And it's just it doesn't even feel like the barest minimum. It feels less than that. It feels like these are the bad guys, these are the good guys. That's all you get.
And for a while now, it hasn't even been faction warfare. It's just been Charlotte taking them on by herself and beating each one of them. Like, if you want a surefire way to take all the air out of a new stable, you have one fucking person take them all out. Like, without even much effort. Like, she doesn't have to be saved backstage by her friends. It's not a case of, what happened with Naomi and Becky the first night they came in. Charlotte's been handling them all by herself. At least with Absolution, like you said, they were taking people out. They were doing stuff. They were making progress. There was a little bit of intrigue. What's going on with Asuka? And Paige, she approached Alicia Fox, her best friend. You're safe. I'm not going to hurt you. But Mandy and Sonya, I can't speak for them. They don't like you very much. And then Alicia got the shit kicked out of her. There was something happening for a very brief period of time, but they don't know how to follow through on a story. I want to move on from this because I don't want to get stuck on one point, just hammering home how bad they're doing with the women's division or anywhere else.
An argument, yeah,
because they're doing good stuff elsewhere. They're doing bad stuff elsewhere too, which we'll probably get to in a little bit. But with NXT, they're doing something interesting at least. The one big thing that happened this past week on NXT was Gargano and Almas had a face-to-face. It was the first time Gargano's been on TV since TakeOver. And there was a brief instant where Candice got in the ring and pretty much drove them both off. Pushed Zelina. Zelina rolled out, Almas followed. And we got the development that Gargano will get a rematch against Andrade Cien Almas. It'll be Almas' title versus Gargano's career in NXT. Normally, when somebody puts their title on the line in WWE, that is a surefire way of telling that the title's going to change hands. But with the way they're calling people up to 205 Live right now, could Gargano actually lose this match again?
I don't think so. I think if his career wasn't on the line, 100%. But I think putting his career on the line, sure, there's a creative way around it after a while.
Well,
but,
it's not even a creative way around it. Like, they specifically said his career in NXT is on the line.
Okay, so I guess that does leave a little bit of a hangover to call him up. But I think Gargano wins. I think I don't necessarily want to see Andrade lose the title per se, because I think he's doing some great heel work. He and Selena Vega, frankly. But at the same time, I think the story plays, especially WrestleMania weekend. I'm assuming that's when the match is going to happen. And with the build with, Gargano still being, Ciampa still being a specter hanging over Gargano at every turn. I think it's the right time to do it. I think it just seems like putting that career is over, deadly results on there kind of makes it a guarantee that, and maybe not a guarantee, but it makes it very likely that Gargano won't lose. I can't see them putting him out of his career. I mean, yeah, like I said, they can write him back in the story after a couple months, I mean, they've done worse ways of you're fired or you don't have a job anymore. Much, like I said, much worse on the main roster. See John Cena and the Nexus. But at the same time, like I think even though it's been a short time that Andrade has been champion, I think based on the work that he's done with Gargano over the last 4 or 5 months, realistically, it's a good payoff at WrestleMania weekend to have Gargano win the title. Especially if, again, Ciampa, it seems like whether he is actually cleared to wrestle or not, they're willing to make sure that you remember that he's there and that, whether he can actually wrestle a match or not, he's still going to attempt to fuck Gargano up at every moment that he can. I like that. I think that's a good build. And I think Gargano being champion only strengthens that, because then it doesn't really matter if Ciampa's the next contender or not. They could even do almost Gargano again with Gargano defending the title this time, and still have Ciampa, possibly being that element that fucks Gargano over when he's champion. I like that a lot.
Well, they didn't say when this match would take place.
Okay.
I don't think it would hold. I don't think they would set it up for Mania this far out. I feel like, given the recent spate of title offenses that they've been having in NXT, I think they're going to have this within the next few weeks. And I'm very much with you, because title versus career always means a title change hands. That's just how it is in the WWE. They don't play with firing people, be it in kayfabe or not, that way. They're not Impact. There is no feast or fired kind of scenario in the WWE. But the way they made it specifically, his career in NXT is over if he loses. That introduces enough doubt, combined with Almas hasn't held the title long enough, and they're pulling in bodies like crazy for 205 Live. I think I am betting against Gargano in this scenario. I think Almas retains it, and Gargano is gone from NXT to make the bump up to 205 Live. And whenever Ciampa does come back, I think he falls in there.
It's entirely possible. I still like the idea of a one-on-one title match between the two of them in NXT before they leave. So I would prefer it if they didn't do it that way, but I'm not going to.
The way Ciampa is, I just don't think that's happening.
I'd
love it too, but
you think no matter what happens that Gargano's going to get called up and before Ciampa's hurt? Because if they put the belt on Gargano, I could see him, having like a Bo Dallas or a Balor run for quite a while.
They don't like face champions long term anymore down there.
I mean, it's a very fluid environment. I could see that mindset changing.
Gargano is such a good underdog. I don't think, even if he took the belt from Almas, I don't think he'd hold it long. I think somebody else would step up and take it away from him. Adam Cole, maybe.
That's fair.
Yeah, with Ciampa being on the shelf and his appearance at TakeOver, like, he clearly wasn't healthy. I just don't see it happening down there.
That's a fair point.
Speaking of 205 Live, let's go ahead and talk the tournament right now. The first round is fixed as far as who is going to be in the tournament. So unfortunately, the rumors of Lio Rush getting called up for the tournament are not coming to pass. But again, like we said earlier, Buddy Murphy is filling a spot. Roderick Strong advanced. Mark Andrews advanced. Wherein he beat Tozawa in possibly the slowest cruiserweight match I've seen since 205 Live aired. That was not a good match. I don't know what it was. It looked like they just weren't clicking. They haven't fought before. It wouldn't surprise me if they've never met before that match. It was so slow and so awkward for at least the first half of that match. And as bad as the crowd is with 205 Live, that just did not do them any favors. The crowd was not having any of that shit. Things picked up towards the end once Mark Andrews remembered that he is all about high-fiving and stage diving and actually started to do some flippy shit. But yeah, that... First of all, I wouldn't have had Mark Andrews advance, but then I am a noted Tozawa mark, so I am definitely biased. But yeah, if you had told me that Tozawa and Mark Andrews would have had the less interesting match between them and Gulak versus Nice, it's not a slight against Gulak or Nice, but I would have called you a liar.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely seems like Tozawa's star is falling ever so rapidly with each passing week. Which is really unfortunate because I don't really feel like he's got a fair shake in his WWE run so far. But I think we also know that international stars not named Shinsuke Nakamura tend to not exactly get their fair shake in WWE either. And that I think is a very strong shame. I mean, don't just look at Tozawa, look at Itami, and we've talked that to death several episodes in the past. So, it's a real shame. I think the pairing of, I've said that so many times, I think the pairing of Tozawa and Apollo would have done great for the tag division at the time, an opportunity that they had to do it. I don't see him being Cruiserweight champion, not anytime soon. I don't see him competing for a number one contendership after this tournament's over. Well, maybe competing, but I don't see him winning it. Not for a while, and that's a real shame.
Yeah, it's enough to make me hope that this tournament ends in a no contest and no one is ever made champion again, because anybody that's ever held that title, shit just goes downhill after they drop it. If it doesn't start while they're holding it.
Right.
Because Swan, they were doing absolutely nothing with him before he got suspended for his bullshit. TJP, after he lost that belt, his prospects went immediately down the shitter. Kendrick, he got hurt, but where the hell was he before? Neville, as glorious as that title reign was, he dropped it and he left. And then Enzo, God, all fucking kinds of things happened there. It's just, and now with Tozawa, he held the title for less than a cup of coffee when he took it from Neville, and just nothing. I don't understand it. I mean, especially because Gulak versus Nice was so fucking good. That was such a great match. That was the Gulak that I'd been expecting to see when after the Cruiserweight Classic, when 205 Live started. That was the man I was expecting to see. I was very pleasantly surprised with candidate for office Drew Gulak, vote for Gulak, no fly zone. That turned out to be a great gimmick. But last night he was a straight up killer, very Philly, very much so. And I want to see more of that. I want to see that return to the hard nosed gladiatorial outfit. We'll stretch you 9 ways to Sunday and then stretch you back and forth and back and forth and until you are unrecognizable as a human being. those palm strikes on Nice while he was holding his beard, those were brutal. I love that match. I want to see more stuff like that from the cruiserweights. Like, I want to see wrestling that is not just what people have come to assume is a cruiserweight style, just like flippy shit that is fun to look at, but there's not a lot of impact there. Like, I want to see people get exposed to the technical side, the brawling side, like the strong style, British technical wrestling, catch as catch can, like all of that. I want to see it all on 205 Live. And the way Gulak is going, I expect we're going to be seeing more of that from him. It's just, I wish it was going somewhere. I wish I was confident that this tournament would end A, well, and B, that the champion would go on to do good things, both as champion and after.
Yeah. And I mean, I know he didn't hold the belt, but, you know, in your list of things that have happened to people that at least, you know, seem to be harshly competing for the belt, you know, I'd definitely throw Austin Aries into that list. You know, I think losing him was a big old loss considering the stuff he and Neville were doing for that 3 or 4 months.
Yeah, like, I tend not to count him because he went out on his own terms after that match, but yeah, it is a shame that he didn't get a run with the belt. I think he's doing okay for himself as world champion over in Impact right now, but yes, I wish they knew what they were doing with that cruiserweight division.
Sure.
But like I at least can be somewhat mitigated in my feelings there because we're not seeing much in the way of story right now, but that's to be expected because it's a hard reboot. They're just kicking things off again. It's a clean slate, and we're getting some great fucking matches. Like last week, we got Kalisto versus Lince Dorado, and I wouldn't have expected a whole lot from that match, but that was a really good Lucha match. That was the Lucha as possible match that you could have in WWE right now. And, you know, I'm expecting good things from Buddy Murphy versus Jack Gallagher next week. Or, Ari Daivari and Mustafa Ali versus Jack Gallagher. Like, I don't see a way that could disappoint. I don't think it's physically possible. So, we're going to get good action, at the very least. And as the herd gets thinned, and you have to start having other angles in addition to the tournament with your talent, I think there is definitely potential for good stuff. Because you're getting seeds planted with Drake Maverick talking to individual superstars. Like this week when he interrupted Gallagher's interview with Dasha Fuentes. And started talking about, oh, nice suit. I have 2 from the same maker. But do you think that's proper wrestling attire? It's absolutely not. You need to get your shit sorted. I want to see you in actual wrestling attire in your match with Mustafa Ali next week. Is Gallagher going to change up his stuff? Is Gallagher going to defy Drake Maverick, the new GM? I don't know. I want to see that. Like, just little seeds being planted that make me think that they haven't done well in the past, but I'm seeing stuff now. I'm seeing potential. I'm seeing the possibility for new direction. And the way that they're handling characters right now, especially with Drew Gulak, it's enough to make me hope. I have been burned a lot before, but it's still enough to make me hope.
Sure.
I think that's going to do it for the weekly programming. There's just a little bit of Elimination Chamber review, I suppose you'd call it. So, like was mentioned earlier, we still only have 3 matches on the card right now, officially speaking. We have Nia Jax versus Asuka. And should Nia Jax win, she will be added to the Raw Women's title match at Mania. Speaking of the Raw Women's title, we have the Women's Chamber match, Alexa Bliss defending against Sasha Banks, Bayley, Mickie James, Mandy Rose, and Sonya Deville. And we have the Men's Chamber match, Elias versus John Cena versus Braun Strowman versus Roman Reigns versus The Miz versus Finn Balor versus Seth Rollins. Will the Raw Tag Team titles be defended? I don't know. Potentially. there's no clear contender set right now, but you could very easily have a number one contenders match between the Revival and the Bar, the Club next week. So that could happen. We're probably going to see Bray Wyatt versus Matt Hardy at the Elimination Chamber as well. Those two don't have a match currently scheduled yet, but it'd be very hard to see them not get one. So yeah, that card is definitely shaping up. And we will be having that preview next week. Because Elimination Chamber is on the 25th. Yes. But I think that's going to bring us to a close for this week's show. So, of course, you can find us at fanstalkpodcast.com. That is our homepage where you can find everything that we do. That is where our archive is located. That is where you can find links to our Facebook group, as well as our Discord chat, where right now we are airing, and there's a live chat for this very show, and there will be one for shows moving forward as well. This is also where we hold live chats for events such as Elimination Chamber, and maybe for Fastlane. We're not sure if we're going to watch that yet. But we will definitely have one for WrestleMania and TakeOver. So that is where you can find the link to join in on all of that. Also, you can find us on Twitter at Fanstalk Podcast. Send us a topic you'd like us to discuss. Give us your thoughts on various programming throughout the week, be it WWE, Impact, Ring of Honor, New Japan, upcoming Lucha Underground tapings. Maybe you went and maybe you want to give us non-spoilery stuff that happened.
I am definitely considering going. I need to figure out, what days they're filming, how much ticket costs and all that stuff. But if I can go, I'm going. Yeah,
according to Fightful, that is the 23rd through the 25th, and the tickets are free. So I would assume it's first come, first serve. So if you want to discuss Lucha Underground taping happenings with Adam, then you can send that in on Twitter. Use the hashtag AskFTPW. If you consume the show through any podcatchers like Apple Podcasts or Stitcher, or you listen through an app like SoundCloud, TuneIn Radio, what have you, leave us a rating and a review. Give us your thoughts on what we're doing, what you like, what you don't like. 1 star, 5 star, any star in between. 6 stars, so there's an option. I hear that is beginning to be a trend. Next week, we are doing the Elimination Chamber pre-show. Hopefully there are going to be more than 3 matches officially booked, otherwise that is going to be an extremely short prediction round. But until then, for Adam, Garvin, and everybody in the live chat, my name is Nick, and we will see you next time here on Fans Talk Pro Wrestling. Good night, y'all.